Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Welcome to Vox Novus, the new voice. Dissociative Personality Disorder, formerly known as Multiple Personality Disorder, has been dramatized in films such as Three Faces of Eve, Sybil, and Split. What is it like to actually experience this neuropsychological challenge? My guest this week on Vox Novus, award-winning best-selling author Gloria experienced this from early childhood and was finally diagnosed with this condition in 2015. She joins me this week on Vox Novus to share this very personal and at times heart-wrenching story and her book documenting this journey, Navigating Life with Multiple Personality Disorder. Please join me in welcoming to Vox Novus, Gloria Hass. Welcome, Gloria.
Thank you, Victor. It's good to be here.
Gloria, when we had you on our first interview back in January, you shared your amazing story about your life before this one and your remarkable book, My Journey as a Gray Hybrid. And for listeners who haven't heard that interview or read that book, please get that book. It's an amazing book. Just recently, I learned about an earlier book of yours that totally stunned me, entitled Navigating Life with Multiple Personality Disorder. This book has found renewed interest and readership recently. And before we discuss this, please share with listeners about your remarkable entry into this life and what you learned about it.
Well, on my entry, before I came in, I was a gray extraterrestrial. And I remember sitting in the waiting room that is in heaven. And I waited for such a long time. I thought I was being overlooked. And it's like, am I ever going to make it to Earth? And because I went from the spaceship into the holding room, and then I came to Earth. And it was, I remember coming into the room and I see the doctor holding a baby upside down, and it was spanking. That's how they did in 1956. They held babies upside down and spanked their bottom to get them to cry, to get their lungs going. And I wasn't breathing. It had been the baby wasn't breathing for 5 minutes, and the doctor was about to claim the baby stillborn. And my mom, at the time, the woman pleaded with the doctor, please try once again. And then I remember being inside the baby, crying. And then the doctor, I'm now the woman's child, and said that, it's a girl. And my mom told me for years, she said, I thought that I was going to give birth to a stillborn child and your father would have never forgiven me. And the actuality was the baby was stillborn, and I came from extraterrestrial into a human.
Do you have any thoughts as to why you chose this incarnation?
I was given the choice when I was on spaceship. There were quite a few of us. I was given a choice as to I could have stayed in search and rescue, or I could come to Earth and be part of a big experiment on how to further our race in making it, the extraterrestrial race in with the humans to make the humans more of a hardier race. So we're all from extraterrestrial beginnings, but we came from the future back to here to say, this is what needs to be done. We need to tweak this. And instead of search and rescue, which would have eventually been phased out anyway, I went ahead and came on to the next, phase of what needed to be done.
Absolutely. Now, we have become friends, and I noticed on your Facebook post a few days ago that you had mentioned this book, Navigating Life with Multiple Personality Disorder. And I said, wait a minute, I wasn't familiar with that book. And I started looking at it, and it absolutely blew me away. To share something as personal as multiple personality disorder must have taken a tremendous amount of courage. What prompted you to come forward and write this book?
My therapist, she told me that she had been involved since the 1990s with this disorder. And when it was known as multiple personality disorder before it became dissociative identity disorder. And she said I had a very rare case. People, it was rare then, and it's only with highly creative and talented people. And I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying what the requirements are for it. And she said, I believe that, more people need to know about it and just think about it. And it took me a while to even want to even go near that topic. And also I was in another program. This is all through behavioral health company organization. And one of the other leaders, I was talking with him, and he said, Gloria, you have a fascinating story. Why don't you share it? And he says, that's all I'm going to say. And after thinking about it for a couple of weeks, or a week or 2 weeks, I spoke with my therapist, and I asked her, would you mind if I record our therapy sessions and then I can transcribe them because I'm going to write the book? And she said, as long as you don't mention my name, because it'd be a conflict of interest, and she would have to sign a waiver. I went ahead and started recording and going back through and writing the book because I truly wanted a better life. And if it could accelerate my healing after many years of being misdiagnosed and not being seen by people who are actually trained to recognize what this disorder is, I would not ever receive the right kind of healing. And after nightmares of waking up in strange places and stuff, I said, if that all could stop, and if I could get some memories back, and if my life would be better than what the hell it was, that I saw write the book, and that's why I did it.
I have a sense, knowing you, that you also did this for others that might have issues of this nature.
Actually, my first thought was me and about me getting better. And then afterwards, I thought if after the book was finished and I was editing it, then I thought about if other people could understand this, for, even the friends of people who have this, they could better understand their friend, then people would be less isolated and have more of a support system.
Absolutely. When did you first hear or recognize what you described as the other voices in your head, and who or what did you think they were?
I was, oh gosh, it was before I went to school. It was before kindergarten. And we had moved to California from Indiana. My brother was in school. My dad was at work. And my mom was in the kitchen. And I remember sitting in the living room area. And my mom heard distinct voices. And she comes in and looks at me. She only sees me sitting on the floor. And I was sitting with the toy, I guess it was a toy record player that we had, her books. And I was sitting there and just moving things around. And then I was reading the book. My mom goes, who are you talking to? And I looked up at my mom and I said, Mommy, I'm talking to my inside friends.
And what was her reaction?
She just looked at me like, what? And she said, well, okay, and would watch me for a few minutes. And I just sat there and looked at her, and I didn't say anything. And I heard, shh, be quiet. She's still watching. And when she went back into the kitchen, then we continued to play. And then she came back again to see, and one of them said, playtime is over.
Mm.
And that's when my inside friends went dormant because my mom.
Quieted
But I
them.
but I believe my mom knew that there was something more because her mother had schizophrenia, and it was thought for years that I had schizophrenia, but it wasn't until I did testing through Department of Parapsychology, I think it was called, I'm not sure, and for some other things. That's when they found out I had multiple personality disorder.
I remember first learning about multiple personality disorder from the 1957 film Three Faces of Eve, starring Joanne Woodward. Later films, including 1976's Sybil, starring Sally Field, and 2016's Split, starring James McAvoy, also highlighted this. You share in your book that your mother had you watch the early film to gauge your reaction and also called you to watch Sybil when it was on television. What do you think prompted her to do this?
I think she believed that I may have multiple personality disorder. And I remember watching Three Faces of Eve, and it was just like, okay, that is different and weird. I didn't quite understand it, but when it came to Sybil, I I hardly could stomach that movie with Sally Field. And I think it was with Sally Field, and it was just really horrendous. And my mom asked me, I said, I didn't like it. She said, well, how do you feel about it? I said, I didn't really, it was, good movie, but it was about a high level of abuse, torture. And I left it at that and said, I don't want to talk about it anymore, Mom. And that's where that was from. But I remember going through therapy and remembering that and understanding, okay, Mom probably knew, probably thought, and I think that was her way of saying, Gloria, you need help because you may have this.
As you had mentioned before, the new psychiatric term for this condition is dissociative identity disorder and is often linked to severe trauma experienced as a child. Do you have memories of traumatic experiences?
Yes, I do, Victor.
Is there anything that you're comfortable sharing with us?
Yeah, because I think I wrote about it. I may as well talk about it.
Yes.
My mom abandoned my half brother and I when we were children. We were living in Indiana. She didn't want to be a mom anymore. I was 2.5 years old, and she was gone for an entire year that I could remember. Was talking with one of her cousins about it years ago, and she said, I think she's only gone for a year, as I was trying to put pieces together. And during that time, I'll preface it with my dad's mother. Her first lover was her father, and my dad's first lover was his mother. And she had a pen, and my dad's mother, I don't like calling her my grandmother because there's no terms of endearment there at all, and on either side. But I remember my dad would work a full-time job, then a part-time job, and he did that even when my mom was around because my mom didn't work because she was raising two children. And my dad's mother would strap me down on the dining room table, and and my dad joined in later, and then they started locking me up in the bedroom because my brother would wake up and ask what was going on because I'd be screaming, and that's when I was sodomized, and they did other sexual things to me. And that is when I started creating the different identities because I needed an army to help me.
You shared that in 2015, you began having a series of seizures. What triggered these, and what do you remember of those experiences?
All I remember is that they called them, I think, silent seizures. I'm not sure. And I, my doctor sent me to a neurologist to have an EEG done to see, what was going on. And the EEG came back fine, but it was during the EEG that I started having really weird, I thought I was having hallucinations. And they ended up being day terrors because I asked the neurologist, are you sure you didn't put anything, into these little needles? Because I thought, maybe psychedelic drugs or anything. And he said, no. And he asked me to explain it. And I told him, and he said, Gloria, you're experiencing day terrors from PTSD from trauma. And he said, I believe you need to go into therapy. And for anyone who doubts that these are my true stories, everything is documented medically. Because I've been accused of making these stories up, but everything that I tell you has been documented medically.
Why would someone accuse you of making these things up? These were horrible experiences you had.
They think I did it to make money off of other people's stories. I've been accused of that several times.
Oh.
And recently I've been accused of it. And I said, everything's from personal experience. Everything is documented.
So after this testing, neurological testing for the seizures, you were referred to what's called neuropsychological testing. How
Yes.
was this conducted, and what were the results?
I had to go for 2 days. One was 8 hours and the other day was 6 hours. And they were to see if about brain patterns. And usually people who have memory issues, dementia and stuff are given these tests and eye-hand coordination and different, memory retention and everything. And they said I scored above average using my left hand over my right hand, and I'm right hand dominant. And they were surprised. And then at the end of all the questioning and everything that they found, they diagnosed me with multiple personality disorder because I didn't show any signs of schizophrenia and other, any other mental illness or disorder that may cause it. And it was through all this trial and error that they told me I had multiple personality disorder.
Let's talk a little bit about that left hand, right hand situation for a moment. You are, for those who don't know Gloria, she is a gifted and talented artist and does some amazing work. And I always associated art with the right side of the brain, creativity with the right side of the brain, the left hand. Did that manifest for you that way?
Actually, I was ambidextrous as a child, and I could write better with my right hand, but when it came to my left hand, I could equally write as well. And my mom made me choose my right hand because my brother was also ambidextrous and he chose his left hand and had a lot of problems in school. So that's why my mom told me I had to pick my right hand. And and then I stopped using my left hand for, equal stuff, things to do. And so then I had lost that ability to write and do other things with my left hand.
Just out of curiosity, the fact that you and your brother were both ambidextrous, that's very unusual for that to manifest in a family. Usually you have right-handed kids or left-handed kids. Did you ever follow through on that to find out why?
Well, he was my half brother. It was on my mother's side of the family then because we had different fathers.
Um,
But as far as I know, it hadn't manifested before that.
That's fascinating. My guest is Gloria Hass. We're talking about her book, Navigating Life with Multiple Personality Disorder. Gloria, please share with our listeners where they can get your books and find out more about you.
You can get my books on Amazon.com. Just put my name in, Gloria Hass, H-A-S as in smile, S as in smile, and my books will come up.
And do you have a website?
No, I don't. I do have a link tree, but I don't have, and it's, if you go to Linktree, and then it's Gloria Hass Books.
And we'll be back with more of Gloria after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going Om. My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Out here, in the middle of all these acres, it can feel like you're the only person on Earth. And sometimes, that's how it feels when you're going through tough times. Stress builds up, you have trouble sleeping, maybe your mind is racing and you just don't feel like yourself. So what do? We get help. Lots of people are struggling with their mental health. It's more common than you think. The good news is, there are people in our community who are here for us when times are tough. Sometimes, just talking to someone can make all the difference in the world, so we don't feel so alone. One thing you can do is visit loveyourmindtoday.org for simple steps you can take to find the right solution for you. Whether it's hearing stories about what other people are going through, or finding the resources we need to navigate the stresses in our lives. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
If I could be you.
And you could be me.
For just 1 hour.
If you could find a way.
To get inside.
Each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Back on Vox Novus, my guest this week is Gloria Hass. Her book is called Navigating Life with Multiple Personality Disorder. So, Gloria, you shared that you had that testing, that neuropsychological testing. This actually launched you into an investigative approach in which you interviewed friends to gather their thoughts about how you related. What did you learn in this process?
What I learned in this process was I needed a trauma expert, someone who would counsel people with, severe trauma. a trauma specialist and not just any psychiatrist who I had been to, who never, even the psychiatrist that I had been interviewed by, negated everything else and already had down that I had schizophrenia and I needed to be on medication. And also had been in therapy up to that point over 30 some odd years. And I kept having therapists telling me that you're fine, there's nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, but then why this? Oh, you're just making things up to get attention. So when I spoke with my friends, a couple of them actually, one of them had multiple personality disorder. And she said, I want you to know that you probably have this, because she would ask me questions and I would tell her what was going on and everything. And she told me to read a book, which I did, and everything sounded way familiar. And then I went ahead and I called my insurance company for behavioral health. And I said, I need to see a trauma specialist. And there was only one, there were two on staff, and only one who was slightly familiar with it, and another one who was very well known and had written books about it. And one of the books was leading in the treatment of people with this disorder. And I was assigned to the first person who knew little about it. And she was removed from the company for advocating for her clients instead of encouraging her clients to advocate for her, which I was sad to see her go, because she coddled, and I wanted coddling. And then it was a blessing, though, that for me, that I no longer saw her, because I ended up going to the second therapist, who was, I don't coddle, I don't do this, this is the way things are. And I didn't like her in the beginning, but I grew to respect her and her knowledge, and she genuinely wanted to help. And she said, if I coddle you, it will delay your progress. And I don't want to do that.
Sounds like someone with a tremendous amount of integrity and professionalism.
Oh, she does. She really does.
Did you perhaps learn or come to find out how many people actually have this dissociative identity disorder?
I don't remember the statistics, but at the time in 2016, it was rare. But then I heard along the way that it was becoming more prevalent, because they changed it to DID, dissociative identity disorder. It's normal for people to dissociate when they're in a situation or they're bored. That is normal for dissociation. And people can be driving along and think, how did I get from point A to point B? When actually in their mind, they're going over a familiar path, but then they start thinking about other things instead of focusing on their driving. And that's why they don't remember getting from point A to point B in a normal day. But there are people with this disorder who can remember driving home from work and waking up a couple of states over. And that is completely different than regular dissociation. And I believe they're throwing both populations in together, which they really shouldn't.
Before we discuss your DID therapy sessions, please share with us a little about each of these 13 personalities that dwelled within you.
Well, at the time I wrote the book, there were 13. By the time I had finished therapy, and by the time years later, there were 101 multiple personalities, because I kept creating them.
Ooh.
When I don't feel safe, I create them, and I did. And I was told with therapy I would never create another personality. And I did. I do. When my dog passed away in 2023, I noticed some things were different, and I created two personalities and I combined them. So, for me, I keep creating, I keep telling my brain, I'm the boss, you're not supposed to, I'm in charge. And it still does what it wants to do at times.
Can you tell us about some of those personalities that came through during your therapy?
There was Julie. She was very promiscuous and she was nasty, and it didn't bother her to cuss people out. And I remember, oh gosh, I was in my 20s. I was out with a friend and her friend, and we went to the bank. And what had happened was I was taking out $100 bill, and it was windy, and the teller did not wait for me to put my hand on the bill. She let it go and it flew out. And money was tight. I was married at the time. And Julie came out, and I remember it's like a movie running, and I started cussing the bank teller out. And we were out looking for the $100 bill. And I remember Cindy looked at me and she said, Gloria, is that you? And I looked at her and I said, who do you think it is? She said, my whole demeanor, my face, my voice changed completely. And the way I carried myself was completely different. And she said, we're going to end this trip. We're just going to take you home. And my girlfriend and I are going to go shopping. We're not taking you with us because we don't know who you are right now. And she didn't know, I didn't know about this. So we went home and she took me home, which was only 10 minutes down the road. And I didn't have money to go shopping. And later on, I was refunded the money by the bank when I spoke with the bank manager. That was a couple of days later.
Tell us about Wendy.
Oh my gosh, she was my first friend I remembered. She was one of my inside friends. She was Casper the Ghost's girlfriend on the cartoon. And I always remembered that I wanted to be Wendy because she had a friend who actually cared for her and loved her as a friend. So I created Wendy. And she was one of my inside friends that I told my mom about when I was 4 or 5 years old.
And what did Wendy bring to you?
Peace, love, and we could sit and talk about Casper and what he was like. And it was an escape from reality of living in a horrible family where there was a lot of abuse and yelling and screaming, and my mom having her issues, and my dad taking the switch to us, and my mom not being that nice to my brother either, like smashing his face into a tree because he was laughing too much.
Was there ever a male personality?
Oh, there are quite a few. I remember Patrick, and he was more like a protector. And my mom wanted to call me Patricia. So Patrick was naming Patricia. My dad said, no, we're naming her Gloria. But when my mom said that she wanted to name me Patricia, I thought that if I became Patricia and then I developed Patrick, if I was a boy, my mom would care for me more, like she cared more for my brother at times. Boys got to do more, and girls were more oppressed and more or less in society. And I thought that if I was a boy, that I could do more. And that's probably why I created Patrick, as well as him being a protector, someone who could say no forcefully and just, stand in the way of anything.
And what about Matthew?
I don't remember Matthew.
Okay, I thought I read it in the book. I'm sorry.
No, there is a Matthew, but I don't remember what his role was.
Okay.
See, once they combine, I get all of the memories that he didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember anything about Matthew.
Of the inside or outside personalities, is there one that you admire the most?
I guess maybe Julie, but not in her vulgar manner. She was a go-getter. She didn't let things stand in her way. It was like, I'm going to do this regardless. Her, her fortitude, her determination, her persistence.
Did any of these personalities, did you incorporate, we'll talk about the bringing them together in a little bit, but did you incorporate any of these as you were going along?
No, I just created more.
Okay.
I didn't start combining them until therapy.
So you began the DID disorder therapy in 2015. What were those sessions like, and what did you learn?
I learned how to be safe. I learned that I am in control, that I don't need to depend on a man to protect me. And we also did EMDR treatments, which really helped quite a bit. It's a bar with a light that goes back and forth, and you hold a control in both. You have a control for your left hand and a control for your right hand. And it's like it's doing a regression back and taking when you didn't feel safe and changing the story to feeling safe and ending up in a positive manner. It was going through why I didn't feel safe, what happened during that time, and then how can you rewrite that journey and rewire your brain through the process to where that is no longer going to be an issue, to where you can feel safe and be more proactive and more powerful in your own right.
And what else does EMDR do? You talk about that a bit in the book. What else does it do?
For me, that's what it was about. It was, I know it has to do with left brain, right brain, and I believe it's to bring things together, but that's all that I remember about it, and the journeys of going on the different journeys and empowerment.
And EMDR works in conjunction with what's known as neuroplasticity. Tell us about neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity is where your brain, it's normal for everybody. When they do it, you're creating new neural pathways and you're strengthening your brain and resilience of your brain at the same time. And when you have neuroplasticity and you're learning new things, like let's say a foreign language, something completely new about a topic you didn't know before, what you're doing is you're changing your brain's age to being younger, to what the current age is. And I was able to get my brain back to the age of a 40-year-old before I had my head injury in 2020. And I enjoyed it because it felt exciting, that it opened up new venues and new avenues in my brain, that I could feel better about myself. I didn't have to feel like I was hiding anymore. I felt better. I read a lot of books on neuroplasticity and what you can do and how to change your thoughts. And I did all this in conjunction with the therapy I was taking at the time. And I had already been reading for years self-help books because I was searching so much for an answer. So when I began therapy in 2015, my therapist said, "You are years ahead of other people because of what you've done. And we just have to fine tune what you're doing." So that's what neuroplasticity does. I believe it expands It gives people, a way to further explore their possibilities of what they can do to change their lives for being better, as well as strengthening their brain.
My guest is Gloria Hass. We're talking about her book, Navigating Life with Multiple Personality Disorder. We'll be back with more after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio.
Most people out here think that taking care of one another is important. And most people would step up for a neighbor going through a tough time. Most people around here help out friends and family when they need it. But the funny thing is, most of us won't look for help when we need it. If you're struggling with mental health, you should know that there are resources out there that can help. And it's okay to talk about it if you need to. One place to get started with information is loveyourmindtoday.org. Loveyourmindtoday.org offers a range of guides, instructions, and insights for dealing with difficult situations or getting through a tough time. If you're struggling with mental health, get the help you need, because most people out here really care. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human. And she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Back on Vox Novus, my guest this week is Gloria Hass. We're talking about her amazing book, Navigating Life with Multiple Personality Disorder. Gloria, how did DID affect your relationships personally and professionally?
Oh my gosh, it was a nightmare for the other person, and I understand that as well as it being a nightmare for me. I was never taught healthy boundaries, how to have a healthy relationship. My mother could have a healthy relationship with someone, but I was never taught how to, neither was my half-brother. And I remember my dad always saying, well, you should know this by now. You should know that by now. And I would ask friends. I would have friends to shake their head. I was in my early 30s. They said, Gloria, why are you doing this stuff? Why? Isn't this normal? No. Well, then what do I need to do to change? Well, you should know this by now. We're talking about, 80s. And how am I supposed to know something if I've never been taught? No one will not know anything unless they've been taught. They don't have those tools in their toolbox. And I was married to a man for 10 years. We should never have gotten married to begin with. the marriage was hell for both of us. And all I did was go with the familiar with abusive relationships. Because that's all I knew because of my parents. I would go with the familiar. And it's very hard to break that cycle. And I realized that I would find healthy relationships boring because it wasn't feeding off the trauma response that I felt inside.
Please tell us about how the process of integrating personalities ensued.
Well, we started with my therapist started with me, and that was also before EMDR, and yes, and also during EMDR, to integrate the different personalities. And she told me that to call them forward, and once I got it recognized, speak with them to find out what their role was and when they were created and what they did, and let them know that they're not, because the personality thinks it's a separate entity. It's a separate person than you. And your brain sees all these personalities as separate people. That's why people's physical appearance and voice can change. I mean, even my eye color would change and my hair color would change. So once I convinced the personality that there was still going to live through me, I had to gain their trust and let them know that you're not dying. You'll just be able to express yourself through me. And I got physically ill. I would get physically sick when each personality would integrate. I would have dry heaves. I would throw up. I would run fevers. And that was the first time my therapist ever heard of that happening. And I do. It's not, I don't know why, even after my head injury, when I combined one, I still got sick. And I'm thinking, well, I guess it's all the different energy is hard to integrate for me. I don't know.
You mentioned in the book about some of the personalities integrating together, becoming as one. Tell us about that, please.
When you become together and you integrate them, you become as one, you gain their memories, because before you're integrated, there are blank spots in your memory that you don't know, because that part of your personality holds that memory. So when they integrate, combine into your main personality, you get all those memories back, but it's like it happening right there at that moment instead of years before. So you're reliving that trauma of what happened and having to work through all of those emotions and feelings. And it's, but once it's done, for me, I was able to move forward and go forward. But once all of the personalities are combined, it's like an empty slate. It's like, who are you? Because you're only used to being a certain percentage of the pie. Let's say you're 5% of the pie. And then you start integrating all the personalities, and some people are 95% of the pie, and the personalities, alternate personalities, are 5%. So what happens is once they're integrated, it's like, who are you? I ended up speaking with a former friend about, I don't know what I like or dislike. And she had to take me through a process. She said, it's like a teenager, trial and error. What do you like? What don't you like? And, it's starting over from scratch, an empty slate. And that can be very disconcerting. Also, it's like what you've based your identity on for so many years is now gone. So what do you base your identity on now? So you write your strengths, your weaknesses. It's something to think about. What color do you like? Do you like drawing? Do you like music? What type of music do you like? And it's rediscovering yourself through this entire process.
You had mentioned before, which I was not aware of, that after completing this book, you actually had another 101 personalities manifest. Tell us about that.
So just a total of it was a total of 101 total. There were some personalities that didn't come forward during my therapy that manifested afterwards. Then I would go ahead and I could still do the integration combining process. And because my therapist even told me, she said, we've gotten 13 done. No more want to come forward now, but they may in the future. So if you need help, you can call me. You can come back to see me and we can go through the process if you need help. So even though I knew about the integration process, I didn't believe I needed to go back into therapy. And besides, then my therapist, by the time I was thinking about it a few years later, she had left the behavioral health company, went into private practice, and my insurance did not cover going to see her. So I just thought, well, and I tried other therapists, and they were younger than me, and they didn't have the experience. So I was like, okay, Gloria, you know what to do, and you just have to do it. So I integrated, and I would wait to ask a personality to integrate when I knew I wasn't going to do anything for 3 to 4 days, because I was usually sick for that amount of time. And I just brought them forward and spoke with them. And there's an altar room, we call it an alternate room, where it's like you're sitting in a meeting with other personalities, with what you think is other people, and actually those are the other personalities. And they would bring me into the room to let them know they were there and stuff. And I would ask them their names, and they would go ahead and push me back out if they didn't want me to know their names at that time. But then they started coming to me one-on-one, and sometimes 2 to 3 at a time.
In the short time that we've been friends, I've known you to be brilliant, a gifted artist and writer with a wonderful sense of humor and a very, very compassionate woman. How long did it take you to recognize and believe those things about yourself?
I took a brain injury. It wasn't until 2020, and I had to fight my way back to learning how to walk for any length of time without my legs and hips feeling like they were going to fall off, and learning how to read back to an adult reading level from a second grade reading level, and starting to make those accomplishments. Did I recognize what my brain was like before the injury to what it was at the present time? And learning to speak and learning the English language again and recognizing words. It took a brain injury for me to realize it.
What message would you share with those who are experiencing any challenges of this nature?
Get professional help. I know that it's scary to, get help you only have to relive that trauma once. And right now, you're reliving that trauma every day by your actions, by your words, and there are people who run away from it, but their life isn't getting any better. You can lose your job multiple times, and you go from relationship to relationship. But getting professional help is the beginning of a better life. And yes, it's going to feel different afterwards. It's going to be the unknown. And I know a lot of it is the fear of the unknown. But I believe that if you get help, you can create a better, new future for yourself by getting your help now.
Gloria, I want to thank you for writing Navigating Life with Multiple Personality Disorder and bringing it to our attention now, because the book itself is really gut-wrenching. It's all factual, and it's amazing how you process this disorder and how you came through it and are the gift to the world that you are today. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, Victor, and thank you.
Her book is entitled Navigating Life with Multiple Personality Disorder. Her name is Gloria Hass. Gloria, please tell our listeners one more time where they can get your book and find out more.
You can go to Amazon.com and put in my name or the title of the book, Navigating Life with Multiple Personality Disorder. It's on Kindle Unlimited, or you can purchase it on Kindle, and it's also in paperback.
And what are some of the other books that they can get there?
They can get My Journey as a Gray Hybrid, Extraterrestrial, Metaphysical, Paranormal, Visionary Encounters about my UFO and other metaphysical experiences that I've had. I also wrote a book, Healing from the Hurts in Your Life. It's a workbook, and Stories from the Heart, and it's stories to elevate your life, both personally and in your business life.
Gloria, thank you so much. And I am grateful that you have found the healing since your incident with your brain injury and can be present for us and share the wisdom and the learning that you have and that you've accumulated and your compassionate heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Victor.
And thank you for joining us on Vox Novus. I'm Victor, the Voice Furman. Have a wonderful week.